Hello, hello, hello. Um, we're gonna start in just a couple minutes. I'm waiting for Swyx. I'm just getting a couple things ready, and yeah, let me know if there's anything that I can improve. I think. Oh, you know what? I should probably plug into my router. I don't know. Hopefully the way. Hey, what's up?
Hey, Michael.
Hey, how's it
Yeah,
going?
it's going good.
Good, good, good. Hey,
Wow,
do you mind?
you sound really good. Can you hear me well?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, you got a good mic there.
I can help you out with that.
I have a good mic from Egghead. It's just that it's in storage right now
Oh,
because I'm moving around.
it's probably
Uh,
the same mic, so you can
yeah,
sound this good.
I need your voice too.
Dude, I'm excited to have you on.
Yeah, excited to be here. Are we recording, by the way?
I think we're live. But
I don't know.
I was gonna wait until 9, just
Okay.
in case. So I think what I'm gonna do is here, wait, let me just double check that everything is working.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. I'm gonna, since I got like a minute left, I'm gonna plug my cable in across
Okay.
the house to my router so that
All right.
things don't go down. All right, we got like a minute, and then that automated tweet will go out, and then we'll just kind of start it off. Are you gonna share your screen at some point?
Yeah, I think.
Okay,
I
cool.
mean, I actually don't know what you had in mind. So I'm down to do anything, but I can sort of do like a complete no knowledge walkthrough, or I can just like answer specific questions.
Yeah. So I thought we'd start with the questions, and then you can kind of walk through that app that you made if you want. But yeah, I thought we'd start with the questions that I ended on, just so we could, I guess, wrap that up.
Okay. I should probably say I didn't actually watch the
Oh no, no,
your
that's
stream
fine.
yesterday.
No,
Okay.
I didn't expect you to. I just wanted you on because you had answers to the questions that I raised afterwards.
Uh-huh.
So I thought it'd be good to have you on.
Sure.
Cool. Hey everybody. So I'm doing something different today. I got the Hangouts on Air thing going. So I don't have any code, making me feel a little bit exposed here. But I got Swix on. Is it Swix or
Yeah.
Swish or?
Yeah. Six. I'm always surprised. Like everyone always gets it right on the first try, but they're always unsure. So like, what other way is there to say it?
You know, it's funny. My family, my dad grew up in Brazil, and so when he had friends up, and they pronounce the X as a sh sound, and
Oh,
when they would come up, they'd see those like crossing signs. Do you remember those? And they're like, "What's shing?"
ah,
So I think my part Brazilian upbringing kind of has me asking, like, is it Swix or Swish?
yeah. No, you're not the only one. But it is six. It's just a nickname I've had like always. So
I like it. I like how you embraced it too. It's just now you don't even have your name on Twitter anymore. It's just Swix.
oh yeah, I think I changed it for some event, and then when I changed it back, I just got lazy. No,
Yeah,
but I try to put my full name because people are uncomfortable with like nicknames sometimes. So I
it
don't.
is. It is true. A lot of people, I think, at my office feel that it's kind of like racist to call me Chan, even though it's
Oh,
what I
yeah,
prefer. I think it's just awkward. Like you said, it's just awkward for people.
yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever, whatever. um, uh, dude, I feel like we should call this crazy reactations right now.
Ooh, that's pretty
Stupid.
good.
No,
That's
it's
pretty
dumb.
good.
It's dumb. I regret it immediately.
You
Um,
had that locked and loaded. You had that ready to go.
Okay, so what we're talking about today was I had a few questions kind of at the end of my stream yesterday, and I think I might share my screen or share my window real quick just for a second. Um, let's see, application window, Twitter, where you and Dan had both responded to me. So I did the live stream. Um, I had wait, let's see, present to everyone. All right, can you see my screen?
I can see your screen. I don't know about other people.
Okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so I did the live thing, and then I said now I have more questions. And you said like what? And I asked about the unstable create root, kind of where concurrent mode comes into play, and then also just kind of like unstable suspense seemed to work for me surprisingly, without having to do the create root and concurrent mode, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to talk about you're going to kind of talk us through some of that. But you had mentioned that the suspense stuff should just work outside of concurrent mode. It's just that you don't have the max duration control. Is that right? It just defaults to 0?
Yep, because old React has no sense of time. So
Awesome. Awesome. So it's just like everything, it's going to be as if you put max duration 0 on everything. So that was the other question I had that you were able to answer is I was using delay MS, which is kind of the old unstable API, and the new unstable API is max duration.
yeah.
And so then kind of final thing, Dan had mentioned that what create root does is it doesn't force the first render to be sync, which I think is what I was experiencing, because when I was rendering the page, it would wait until that that async call came back and then render the whole page. So I wasn't seeing my spinners until I took create root, which makes sense to me with my limited knowledge right now, that would be the case if create root doesn't force synchronous render for the first time.
Okay, I don't think that's exactly right. Because,
okay, cool.
You should have seen your placeholder anyway.
Okay.
So I didn't see your stream yesterday, but
No, that's fine.
This is more for server-side rendering. The original goal for React Suspense was streaming server-side rendering and not having to do the double pass rendering trick for SSR. So this would React DOM.render, right? Assumes that you're going to render everything. So there's two there's like two the new concept to get. So first of all, I should say that I'm just repeating what other people tell me on Twitter and what I see on GitHub issues. I don't speak for the React team. I'm sure
we're just experimenting. We're just having fun this morning.
I'm just a rando on the internet. I mean, they're very careful about the messaging, as they should be. So so there's two phases, right? The commit phase and the render phase and the commit phase. Create root that allows you to just do render and not commit. And the render can be interrupted and suspended, so you don't have to finish the whole thing. So that's the different assumption, fundamentally different assumption from React DOM.render, which was created it didn't have any other concept than that. So I think they're keeping that around, but they're encouraging us, if we want, for new apps to use create root going forward. But essentially, they do the same thing.
I see. Interesting. Okay, cool. So that would be something that would be more applicable, you're saying, if I was doing server-side rendering, not for what I'm doing right now.
Right. Or static-side generation.
Yeah. So, okay, cool. Give me just a second. I'm going to close this window because there's dogs yapping. Okay, cool. Yeah, when I saw it, I had assumed that it was like the new thing that I was going to have to do, that it changed everything, and that was the way that I opted into concurrent mode, without using the concurrent mode components.
Yep.
But it sounds like that just works out of the box. I can use render the way that I was, and I should investigate it, or I can use it either way, but I should investigate it if I'm doing some server-side rendering, static site generation, etc.
Yeah, there's already a gist that's been written up by Andrew.
Okay.
I don't know if you've seen this. I can share
I
it with
haven't.
you.
Yeah.
All right. How do I do this? How do I screen share? Okay, my turn. Take over the screen. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So this one is actually a very old gist, but he's actually updated it recently to show the API for create root. So this is create root. It creates a root, right? And typically you can just go straight to root.render. I actually added docs for this yesterday.
Oh, cool.
These are not docs, but
so it's
so this is my repo.
SWYX / was it fresh create?
Fresh concurrent React.
Concurrent React. Cool.
It used to be async React, but they renamed it, so I had to rename mine. So I just wrote up like what I read about it. So originally you could say React DOM create root with a container, and then root.render whatever JSX you have, right? So that's the typical way that you would use it. But then if you wanted to do more granular rendering, you can also do, for example, pre-render, and then do other async work, and then commit. So these are the two ways going on. And then you can also do so this route requires you to have a container existing, right? But what if you don't have that assumption and you want to just render without a container? You can create a lazy route, and then fulfill the container later. But you only pass a function into there. You don't actually pass a DOM container itself. So those are like, I think what they're planning. They haven't even implemented it yet. It's probably on another branch. So it's not in the React repo. But
okay.
That's what's going on there.
Interesting.
So this is the gist, and I also recommend for people like just getting to know why we even want this in the first place. I really like this one because this is the original, like even while Fiber was still being written. Have you seen this?
Oh wait, I think so. Was that one of the demos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if they've ever demoed this in stage, but this is definitely talked about as like a proof of concept for why we even want this. So if you see the spinner here, this just shows whether the thread is blocked or not. I can make it more obvious. I built a clone of the JSConf thing, the radar.
Oh, nice.
So you can see that things get locked up with the red region, and that just calculates like the difference in every single frame. So if you switch to async mode, the reloading doesn't block the main thread. Like it can just slice things up really nicely and keep rendering. And then the problem being, and then the last feature I think that is very subtle about React Suspense, which people don't get, is that siblings block each other. So this one, so you see the top loads faster than the bottom, right? So the top is going to show first before the bottom, right? And if you had it the other way around, if the bottom loaded faster than the top, it would load the green thing and then it would jump down and then be filled out by the blue thing, right? So that wouldn't.
Which is always infuriating. That happens to me like all the time. And you click something that you didn't mean to click because something else got inserted, like just before you clicked it.
Right. So Suspense by default switches the default to siblings blocking each other. So this is what they call coordinating the commit phase, and they appear together because one waits for the other to finish rendering, and then they render the whole thing at once. So placeholders are ways to coordinate the appearance together of siblings. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's awesome. This
is really effective, right?
Yeah, that's a huge UI improvement, right? Because so many times as a user, I lose a lot more time to like correcting going to the wrong place than I would just waiting an extra couple milliseconds for the children to coordinate, right?
Yeah.
What's that called again? Coordinated what?
Coordinate commit phase. I mean, this isn't a real name at all. This is just what they had going on with the proof of concept.
Sure, sure.
The point is that it's better defaults like that. Like in my first talk about React Suspense, I made it very, very clear. Like the problem is not placeholders. I think Ryan Florence is going too far in like he's calling it spinner get in, and like spinners are not the problem. The problem is that defaults are probably often the things that we don't want, which are unintentional loading states. So things like siblings not loading together and so on. I don't know if you want to talk about actually, yeah. What else? What other questions did you have?
I think those are honestly at this point, those were the only questions. My confusion was around just those three things, kind of like what the difference of. I guess one thing I am curious about is, do you have any examples of kind of those concurrent mode tags? My understanding is that you can wrap them around selective parts of your application, so that they can just those parts can opt into concurrent mode without having to transition your whole app all at once.
Yeah.
And yeah, so is that accurate?
Yeah. So I think the way to say it is that React 16 is opt-in to concurrent so you opt in to concurrent by using the concurrent mode tag. So that's react.concurrent mode, right? And then whatever part of your tree that you want to run in concurrent mode, you just wrap a concurrent mode inside it. And then everything else that's a child of it works. And then React 17 will be opt-out. Or there just won't be an option at all.
I see. I see.
So I think that's the plan, or it could be 17, 18, whatever.
Sure. But at some point, it's going to be you're going to get that concurrent rendering by default just by using React, and you may not have a way to opt out of it. Right.
So that would be create root, right?
Okay.
So in future we will transition to something like this and have less of and this will be the one that's enabled by default, and this one is the one where you opt in. So I think that's that makes sense, and yeah, it's really nice that they are always insisting on having an opt-in path.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I've always been pleasantly surprised with the tools that they give us to upgrade our apps. Or to migrate them. And this seems like a great one. You can just kind of start putting that in places that you might be concerned about how things work, or you just want to explore and see how it changes things. And that sounds awesome. I'm really excited about the kind of the coordinated children. I think that's going to be a really big improvement for UIs, or like you said, it's just a better default, right?
It's a better default. I think people get it's no more and no less, right? Like you don't have to use it if you don't want to. You can always opt out. But by the judgment of the React team, this better fixes the problems that they see. And there's ways to get around it if you want the old behavior.
So what would be a mechanism for opting out?
Placeholders. Put placeholders everywhere.
Gotcha. Just put the placeholders there. Okay, cool. Awesome. Now you had just built an example that you said that you had tweeted like just before we started, right? You just built something up.
Yeah. So that would be so you can find those in the README, right? And basically what this is I mean I don't even want to say built it, but whatever. In the React package, there are fixtures that they maintain, and if you go to the unstable async folder. They have the Suspense demo, which is modified from the JSConf video, and then time slicing demo, which is also from JSConf.
Okay.
So basically, I just put those on Code Sandbox, and I tidied up some of the code. So let's just go see what this looks like. And I mean, obviously, the reason I wanted to put in Code Sandbox is so I can demo it and show the code, and people can fork it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, did you play with this in your last stream?
No, I didn't play with this.
Okay, cool. I think it's important to show people.
I might do it in a future one, but you can lead the way. Show us what you got. I'm gonna mute so I don't accidentally, just by breathing, steal the screen back. So yeah, so go for it.
I mean, it looks like I'm sharing the screen, so this is hopefully working. So this is the demo, and it's really like a master detail list, is what they call it, right? And you just click on anything, it loads some data asynchronously, and then it shows some details, and then you just go back and forth between those, right? So that's kind of like it on the surface. But what this lets you do is you can bring up a debugger by pressing slash, right? And it lets you show how things are cached in React. So here, because I clicked this page before, it instantly transitions because things are in cache. And then it also shows you things how things are loading together, and they display all at once when everything is loaded. And if you want to fine-grain control, you can click pause new requests, right? And you can click on a new page, and it doesn't load, right? And you can control. See, that's a timeout there, and that's a placeholder timing out, right? Because I'm talking about it, so it just timed out for me. And now it's transitioning the placeholder because the max duration has been exceeded, right? And then I load details, for example, and it's loading details, and it's showing the details because there's a placeholder here, and then when I load the repositories, right, then it shows the repositories, and that's a loaded page. Right?
Oh man, that's awesome.
So I think everybody who uses React Suspense needs to go through this example and figure it out for themselves, because the way that Dan Abramov did it during JSConf, like he knows it, right? Like but you don't yet, and this is the best way to like just get a really good feel of what. I just screwed this up. Oh, here. We're going to of how changing the placeholders around changes the defaults for you. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to go into the page. Okay, so here I've got the screen that's too small. If I do this, I'm going to open up the page. I'm going to look at user page, right? And then I'm going to look for Suspense. So what I want to show you the way that I want to show you the way that it does. The way that it loads separately. So there's app, there's spinner. Sorry, this is like completely unrehearsed, but
no, it's fine. This whole thing is yesterday. You should have seen my stream yesterday. I was just like, I don't know jack shit. I'm just like,
okay. So all right.
But I think I heard.
All right, I'm going to clear up the screen. Okay, so let me orient you, right? I use style components here, so you don't have to worry about styles in line, and we just worry about the page. So we have a user page, right? The user page has details, and it reads from the resource. So that's this suspends when it doesn't have it in cache, right? And inside, so that's the user detail section, and then there's a placeholder wrapping around the repository section, right? So so if you can look at it as I can load user details, and then I can try to load repositories together. But if the max duration of a second exceeds, then it's going to just show user details and then show a placeholder here. Does that make sense?
I don't know if you can hear me nodding. I muted so that I didn't steal the screen back. But yeah, totally makes sense.
Okay. So again, I'm just going to show. I'm just going to be extremely like I'm going to over communicate because I think people like don't get this. Like every time I try to verbally talk about it, they like nod along, but they don't get it. Okay, so so here I'm gonna intentionally load. I'm gonna go into a screen, right? Okay, it's gonna show, and then I'm gonna let the max duration expire. Okay, so hang on. I'm gonna go into a screen, right? I'm gonna load user details, and then I'm not gonna load repositories. So this will expire, and it's gonna show the placeholder, and it's gonna show the details. All right, so let's go. I click on details, I load the details, but I don't load the repositories. It's gonna show the details, but it's gonna show placeholder for the repositories, right? So that's declaratively how you declare that this is an intentional loading state, right? And then only when I show repositories I mean, only when I load the repositories, then it loads the rest, right? That makes sense. So now if I remove this, there's siblings now, right? There's a suspender here and there's a suspender here, right? Let's look into this. User details has a cache read, right? And repositories also has a cache read for the repositories, right? So both of them have suspenders, but let's say like one of them resolves differently from another, right? So I'm just gonna reload the app. And now I've removed the placeholder in between, right? I really should have forked this repo because I think I may have unintentionally broken it a little bit. So like code sandbox is a bit weird around Babel and stuff.
Yeah, I know. I was actually having I was having like kind of a weird Babel thing, even with a fresh a fresh what is it, create React App 2.0 box the other day.
We'll see. I can replicate this on another instance that I have going on.
Okay. No,
it should be fine. Okay.
So,
all right.
Okay. Cool.
Here we go. Let me just finish my train of thought. Okay. So here, remember I removed suspense, right? I had this here, and I removed it, right? So so now they're siblings and they suspend together, right? So here I'm gonna also pause new request and I'm gonna load this. And now it's in a loading state. It'll transition to a placeholder because I have a placeholder around this whole page. And then I'm going to load details like I did before. But now notice how it doesn't show anything, right? Because the other thing still hasn't finished loading, right? And they're siblings, and there's no placeholder around this, right? So it's on you. I mean, it just declaratively shows together, right? Because in the JSX, it shows together. Right, so that's how like it's so important to understand this thing about intentional and unintentional loading states. Like everything here is intentional, whether you want placeholders or not. Whereas previously you just introduced it in based on whether this API is loading or not. So that's the main thing I wanted to emphasize.
Yeah, that's awesome. So where's the placeholder around the styled page? So we got navigated.
It's in the main.
Spinner.
Yeah, it's in the main app. I didn't show that. But
no, that's right. I was just hoping to see it.
User page. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that
and this is code split as well, which is nice. Huh?
Nice. So that's that big spinner we're seeing when we get navigated to the page, but it's waiting for both children. Like you said, you got that default where the coordinated what is it? Commit phase for those children. And so it's blocking on both of those unless you further opt in and say, if we get this earlier, I want this as soon as possible. Or like you kind of wrap the one that you're willing to wait for, maybe the longer possible request in that suspense component.
Exactly.
Okay, cool. Now I do have a question. I was remembering it as you were going through this about the resource reads. I know that for like a collection of things, you just kind of do you do like resource.read and then put the cache in there. But then for IDs of things, you do like comma ID. What's the story there?
I'm not exactly sure what you mean. So here I have a comma ID.
Yep.
So what do you mean accessing without the?
So this is like the user detail, right? But is there like a user collection, like where you're getting all of the users?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you just passed it actually, or maybe not.
This?
Yeah, it's right in there, right?
No, that's the code split component.
Oh, gotcha.
Get a list page. Okay, that's it. Yeah, this is it. Okay, so here it is, and it's So then you read. So here you're reading the whole thing without the cache. Without the ID, you're just reading an array of contributors.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so
So this, yeah, this links to my fake API backend, right? Because I don't have a little backend, and this just gets all the contributors, right? So yeah, this is a collection.
okay, cool. So, but that's my understanding right now is like how you use resource read is that you just put cache in there if you have like a collection of things that you're going to map over, or like this is the super layman's version. But then you would throw an ID in there if you have like a specific resource that you are referencing when you do those like
Yes.
resource reads.
Yep.
Cool.
I think, and I think it's important to stress again that React cache itself is unstable, and I think there's been discussion of removing this cache in all. So basically, when you create resource, you just attach the cache here.
Mm-hmm.
So then you don't have to keep referring to cache. You can just say create contributor list resource dot read.
Gotcha.
It just works.
Yeah.
So I think I'm sure there are pros and cons to that. Like my general approach to these things is that like I'm not smart enough to to follow along, right? So like I just like get the rough idea and then let them worry about the details because I mean we all have other things that we need to do and this is their full-time job. So I think the best way, like the most mentally sane way to approach it without like sitting on their shoulder all the time is just to try to get the gist of what they're trying to achieve, and that's what I always focus on. Like, what is the principle? The principles is better defaults. Right? So.
Yeah. And I feel the same way. You're just like way further along on the suspense thing than I have. I am.
Yeah.
I like watched the video, and then yesterday was kind of my first time tinkering with it at all. So this was really helpful for me to kind of get a better sense of the why behind everything, which is those that improved default is a huge improvement. But then also just to see a little bit more of the code, see that example that you linked to where you're specifically showing how you're opting in to the more sliced up loading experience and how you can manage those. It's really good to see that.
So there's like I made this actually like in March, and like it's amazing because like the whole point was like this, and like the benefits and uses and the goals stays the same, but the APIs would change, right? And all of these have changed, and it doesn't matter because like as long as you get the big picture, you kind of get a hold of it. I mean, I think it's super interesting that they split out scheduler. Did you talk about that at all? Do you want to talk about
I didn't talk about that at all. Yeah, let's go for it.
So the scheduler is a big part. Like a big part of my React Rally talk, right, was like what makes React React. And my argument was that what used to make React React, which was like JSX and like Virtual DOM and all that, that is no longer React. Like that's just like a general thing that people do now, right? Like Vue has it, like so like what is React? And it's really the scheduler. Like that is the core of it. Everything else you can replace in 200 lines of code, and that's what I showed in my talk. But the scheduler you can't because that's a complete rewrite of like the runtime behind React. And so like and then I was like and then after React Rally, they open sourced it and split it out of React. I was like, and then the Angular team was like, oh, this looks interesting. We want it. So that is huge. I mean, I don't know how people are like not. I mean, so
is React just like basically a thin wrapper around the scheduler now with the kind of opinions of React and those APIs that we're accustomed to?
So I think that's overstating it. I think the scheduler is basically more. It's more of like a polyfill around the React team or Sebastian's opinion of how request animation frame and request idle callback should work, because the platform doesn't work like that right now, for better or for worse. So they needed the scheduler to do that. But the React Fiber data structure is still very much React and is still very much within the reconciler of React. So that's the way to think about it. But scheduler is a separate library, right? And and this could very well be used by other libraries, and we could swap in and out schedulers just like in RxJS they swap out schedulers.
Yeah,
So that's a very interesting way to think about it. I don't know if it's right. I'm sure we'll learn more React on. But like splitting it out was like a big move to me. I was like, what is going on?
So where does the scheduler live now?
It's its own library.
Is it like available somewhere that you can?
Yeah. I was working on this demo. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, so here. So if you remember JSConf, the JSConf demo. Okay. Why is it not loading?
I don't know. I have that sometimes when I stream too, where it's like I go to a thing and it's just like takes friggin' forever.
It was working before.
Yeah.
It better work. Actually, I should just pop it out. You know, okay. Still can't beat local dev sometimes, you know.
I know. I totally agree. Hey, so real quick, I asked some people in chat for questions. And I got one, and I was kind of curious. So Wasim's asking, do you feel that setting up the cache read write on every resource might get repetitive, or boilerplatey quickly?
Yes.
And so you'd actually kind of mentioned that a little bit, that they're talking about possibly adding that cache when you set up the resource, so that you don't have to add cache every time, right?
Yeah, so something like this, whatever. But like, I think it's very important to understand that React is no longer like a high level. Like, it's actually very low level. The level to which they want you to understand the APIs is much lower than I think people understand is going on. Most apps are just going to want a singleton cache, right? So every Suspense app is having this like cache.js thing where you import create cache and then you like put it in a singleton and you initiate it. Which like this could be built in, right? Like, but it's not, because they want you to write this every single time.
But this also gives you the flexibility to do a lot of stuff in that reset function, right? Like if you need to rebuild the state of the world, in some ways you can do that.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, my argument is like, if I'm writing this, I can write my own create resource function as well, right? Put it in here and just throw the cache in there and then export a create resource function with the cache, right?
Right.
You call it like function create resource with cache. And then I only call this function, right? And that works. So React is very low level. They basically don't. They just want to give you the primitives to build with, and then they want you to be familiar enough with the primitives that you don't use other libraries. You just build it every single time from scratch. I think that's probably optimistic for some people, and people will want abstraction libraries on top of React to do all this for you.
Well, it does seem smart that they have, at least right now, that React cache is sitting in a different library, because it does seem like there could be a lot of innovation around that. Just like in the same way that like I'm sure that there'll probably be like a GraphQL version of this, right? Or like a Reduxy connected thing, that like a lot of the opinions then become this like, oh, instead of using React cache directly, you're going to use our library and it's going to manage all that stuff for you.
Right. So Apollo 3, I think you're announcing it right after React.
Okay.
So Apollo 3 will have that. Relay obviously already has it because they've been using it on Facebook. I mean, everyone should go write their own cache. They can. It's actually not like super hard. Kent's done a video on that where he wrote it in an hour. And React cache itself, the implementation is about 400 lines of code, and it's completely readable. So it's like not. It's just like what are you optimizing for that React cache doesn't do? And it's going to be things like key-based invalidation, or if you want to store things if you want to make your cache like a service worker, so you store things in offline or IndexedDB or whatever. So that's actually something I'm exploring. Like I'm calling it like suspense workers. So that I mean, basically, what we're doing is we're making apps that like install like every React app, every React Suspense app will have a cache.
Yeah, yep,
And
yep.
I mean, it's different from a page where you go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with the server. You just
Mhm.
download a fully running client, and then you like it work within there, and then it fetches data from the outside if it needs it, which is like a different way of thinking about things. I don't know. Anyway,
Yeah,
so
no,
so that yeah.
absolutely is. But so it seems to me like once Suspense goes live, like React Cache is kind of demonstrating like the minimum viable product that allows you to opt into Suspense. However, it's very likely that there's going to be a lot of innovation around that, and like doing the whole like cache read, all that kind of stuff. Not only is it likely to change in React Cache, but it's very possible that when we're writing code, like when this stuff goes live in like a few months from now, that that isn't that's not even the way you're going to be doing it in your app, because given the way that you interact with your data, maybe there's like a JSON API like cache resource thing that knows how to like get stuff from JSON API and whatever. But like you might be doing something using another library for that completely.
Yeah.
Cool.
I also want to correct one minor thing. I don't even think React Cache is a minimum viable cache. Like I think this is fairly full featured, and I
Mhm.
think they're going to add key based invalidation. So just to show you, like they have like preload here. Um,
Yep.
so like they have, apart from read, like you technically only need read, and
Mhm.
you don't even need like invalidate. Um, so uh, and invalidate is just like clearing the whole cache. There's no key to pass in to clear parts of the cache. But then they also have preload, which is like completely unnecessary, right? But it's a nice way to like cheat at making your backend seem super fast, because you're just using you're preemptively loading data, and then
Yeah.
not suspending while you load the data.
So I'm just like spitballing here, but like with preload, if I'm understanding correctly, like you could start preloading data like as someone hovers over one of those load items. Is that my understanding?
Yeah.
Okay, cool, cool.
So I mean, Gatsby is doing that with Guest.js,
Mhm.
and that's basically you tie it into Google Analytics. So based on the URL of your page, what's the most likely next page, and they
Yeah.
go load that in the background. But I mean, it's really as declarative as like, let's look at here. Um, right. So I have this. Okay, let's just preload everything. Can we do that? I don't know.
I want to be sensitive of your time. You're good right now, right?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay, cool.
I'm fairly flexible. But like, so like basically like, you could say, I don't know what the next user is, right? But let's say we can just say preload ID plus one, right? And this would load in the background, right? And this would never be used. I guess if the linter throws an error, you can just say this, that. And this will never be used, but it will be warm in the cache. And then when you go to the next user, it would just
Yeah.
transition immediately because it's already been loaded. And what's great about this is that this throws, right? This throws the promise, and this doesn't throw,
Hmm.
right? You can see that in the source code, and it makes like intuitive sense. Um, where this is in the read thing, right? And in preload, there's no throw, right? It just says load. So like it's just like it's not that complicated, and like because it's an external API, all the complicated logic goes inside of React.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So
Um,
one thing as I'm looking at the project, the way it's structured. Hold on, let me close the door real quick. So as I'm looking at the project, the way it's structured, one thing that feels uh, that I have a response to personally is I've been spending a lot, like the last handful of years, kind of separating these concerns of like how data is collected and like these templates, right? Um, Sorry, if you go back to your code sandbox.
okay.
And so like I just want really hard, like there's this kind of like internal rule or law for me that like I need to separate like data collection from the like actual I don't know, styling, markup, JSX, whatever. Um,
Yeah.
and so that like this is like such a hard thing for me to kind of get used to as I'm seeing this. And is that idea of like I have this kind of I don't know, like component that is just like presentational, but also in there it like knows how to get the data for itself, right? It's like a different, it's a shift for me.
Um, what am I supposed to say to that?
I don't know. You don't have to say anything. Does
Okay.
that feel weird? I mean, you've played with it longer than I have. Does that feel
Yeah.
weird to you, or does
So
it?
so I had this a while ago when I first got into programming. Like, what is the difference between imperative and declarative,
Mhm.
right? And then I used to like my immediate reaction was like, oh yeah, imperative is it's worse, and then declarative is better.
Yeah.
And things are either imperative or declarative. It's a hard line. You should never cross it, whatever. But then it's so wrong. Like okay, so let's say we have a class component, right?
Mhm.
Whatever, state equals re, and then I have a button, right? On click. This dot set state free,
Mhm.
or whatever. You get my picture.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
is this declarative? Is this declarative or is it imperative? Because this is imperative, right?
Uh-huh.
I'm setting state imperatively, but it's declaring that I'm just declaring a function that's attached to my button.
Right, yeah.
When I click it, it executes this imperative thing, but it updates the state and then it re-renders and all that, right? So like,
Yeah.
so I think the line is blurred, and we get lazy, we get used to when things are so like just like get API, and then it's like ID equals to fetch, right? And then so then we'll go get API, and then set state, whatever.
Mhm.
So this would be the way that you're used to doing it, right?
Yeah.
I'm really
So
mangling.
no,
I'm
no,
really
no,
mangling the
it's fine.
syntax, but you get the picture.
Yeah, I get
So
the picture.
so
But so I
we're
guess
just moving the boundaries.
yeah, because well, the question that I have is that usually what I would do is I would have a component totally dedicated to getting that state, and then I would like compose them together with like a render prop or something like that. Um, and this feels a little bit more like connected. I mean, I guess in a way you could do the same thing. I mean, you could write these components out as like render prop components, but it feels like that's not the golden path right now, at least.
It feels that it's not the golden
Like it feels like the stuff that I've seen is this like, oh, you have this thing and it knows how to like connect to the, like you just connect them together. Like it grabs that data out of the cache and renders the thing. Right. Like if you have like an invoice or a person or whatever, it just takes an ID as prop and then pulls that out of the cache and renders it. It does both jobs.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I think that is it's just moving the boundaries around between between. Okay, I just wanted to make sure something like that, right? So that this analogy is closer to this analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Probably this is way more than necessary. Okay, but
I mean, I get where you're going with that.
okay, so my point is that it's moving around the boundaries of this is imperative, this is declarative, this is declarative. And it's just like, all right, let's make the whole damn thing declarative because this is a super common pattern, and let's just give it an official way to do it.
Yep.
And the point is that it's idempotent, so that this term is very important, right? Which means that you can do it. Which means that you can do it as many times as you want, but the result was not going to change given the same inputs. So that's the way that it can keep suspending and keep reading. So if there's a lot of these, right, they'll suspend once, we'll
Yep.
fetch it, and come back down again, suspend, and we'll go fetch it again. That's not accurate. Actually, they'll actually batch all these suspends up and do it all together.
Sure.
But mentally, and when you console log stuff out, that's what it's gonna look like when they try to render. So it's very, very complicated and nuanced in the back end.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically, like, reads are now reduced to this format, but mutations are not going to change, right? So you're still going to want to say, like, you know, like, I don't know, change name, right? And then you still do this, and then you still pass this, and that's a mutation, right? And that's going to change, and then you're going to need to invalidate the cache, right? So cache invalidate, right? So so you're still going to need to do mutations manually, but like basically, you know, I think if you were putting things in render props before, you would have, like, okay, let's try and list out the problems with that, right? So there's non-blocking of siblings, right? It's harder, like, in order to loading, right? So there's it doesn't block siblings unless you elevate the parent, this loading state. You know what I mean? Like, you know, if you want things to show up together, then you have to move the loading prop, like, let's call it React loadable.
Yeah.
You have to move that one level higher than all the other siblings, right? So what React Suspense lets you do is this thing, I think they call it referential transparency. Do you know about this?
I've heard the term. I'm not super familiar with it.
Okay. Which is the siblings don't have to know about each other. And the parents don't have to know about each other. Don't have to about children. Sorry, I'm making up these, like, talk slides as I go.
You're just gonna copy and paste this out of it, and now you have a talk. You're welcome. Thanks for being on the show.
I guess. I mean, okay. Okay. So to me, this matters more for React Loadable, that you're so tightly coupled between parent and child.
Yep.
Whereas this one, the suspense thing, and then this is a nice to have rather than this is a result of this happening.
Yes.
So this is a more important point.
So it sounds like referential transparency, in layman's terms, just means that the relationships that we have kind of come to understand and internalize in React as it is today are no longer really relevant in this kind of suspended environment.
Like, I think it's just, like, intentional.
And ownership, and
you can always put placeholders, right? And then that breaks you out of the. You can always put suspense on them. That breaks you out of the default behavior.
Gotcha. So effectively, though, it becomes opt-in.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
But like I said, it changes the default, right?
Yep.
You can still do everything you used to do, but you'd have to do a lot more work to do it. Whereas before, you know, in current React, you can still do everything that you would do in React Suspense, but you have to do a lot more work to get there. So it's kind of like, where do you shift the default around?
Right.
I don't know if you noticed, but React Suspense is entirely doable in user land except for one thing, right? And a lot of people are like, why don't you do this as a high order component? Oh, and that's another problem with the render prompts, right? Component tree, whatever you call it. So this gets rid of it, because it's just you know, a suspender within that. Right? So it just, like, gets rid of all your loading states and all that. You should also, by the way, also have error bounds around this, right? Around this component. so that you catch you know, errors and stuff in here. So
Sure, sure.
suspense is very much made to work together with error bounds, and like I've written probably like 3 error bounds since they were released a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the React team is very disappointed in people not adopting error bounds. But I mean, we're just like used to working without it, you know. So
Oh yeah, totally. Well, I mean, they even have an example that you can basically just copy and paste out of there and use as your error boundary component.
yeah.
I mean,
Well, yeah, I don't need it, so I don't do it. Right.
I'm just saying, like, you know, if you don't have a lot of experience using error boundaries, you don't have to like invent one. It's like in the documentation, and you can just copy and paste it out. I did that yesterday.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, you know, I get that it's like uncomfortable, but like to me, it reduces the things I have to do, and then there are other things for which I'm still going to use, you know, more imperative forms. And yeah, I don't know. It's just less work. I mean, I just think that it's like I think it's a lie. One of the lies that we say is like React is a library and not a framework, and it like clearly is now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's just like not say that anymore.
Yeah, I feel like at first it was like the first live React was that it was like the V and MVC. And you're like, wait, set state's all I need to do everything, right? And I feel like now that it's squarely going into framework territory.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I totally agree with you there. It's no longer just kind of this like, because I mean, up to this point, you just had components, right? Like you use React and all you get is a component effectively. And like there's more and more types of concepts that you have to be aware of to use React now.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, a couple of things before I guess we're going to wrap up soon.
Yeah. Let's wrap up.
A couple of things I wanted to get across as well is that we're not just fetching data for resources. We can fetch anything, and I literally like data means anything. So here we're using create resource to fetch a page.
Yep.
And this is a block of JS code, and that's the dynamic import syntax from either Webpack or ES modules. Right. So like that's a new thing. Like I think people may fall into this trap of thinking about caches as key value stores of strings or objects or JavaScript primitives, but it's really not. Like it's really literally anything, because underneath it all, right? If you look at the here, it's a map. It's a JavaScript map, and it's not an object. It's not. And the thing about ES6 maps is that they can store anything, including functions, including like just like anything you want, like references. So here, here's very interesting. Like we store an image, right? Create resource, and then here's a function returning a promise, right? That's how you create a fetcher. And inside the promise, you're returning an image and storing that. And that's how the image loads together with the rest of the screen.
That's really cool. It's really cool.
And that's really cool. And then if you look at sorry, I'm like nerding out about this stuff.
No, I love it. That's why I wanted to talk with you about it, because you're so fired up about it.
Okay. So you can also do debouncing. You can also do CSS loading. I don't have an example of that to show you, but you can also do debouncing. So if you look at the source code, again, like look at all the tests. The tests are really good. It's called debounce tests. The tests for React Suspense show you how they want you to use React Suspense. Maybe move it. They may have removed it.
Oh. I guess they don't want you to use it anymore.
No. I think I got the name. Oh, delay. Is that what it's called? But basically, because siblings suspend each other. If you put a delayer next to, yeah, here we go. Oh, this is so cool. When I saw this, I was like, oh, I don't need no dash anymore. So look at this delay, right? It just never resolves, or it resolves after 10 seconds. So to debounce text, you just put a delay component, which is invisible, next to a text component, and every time you type this will suspend again, and only once you stop typing and the delay times out, right? Then this whole thing resolves. So that like declaratively does a debounce. I don't know, but it's pretty interesting.
That's
how they
wild.
You didn't see this? No, okay.
No, I haven't seen it. I'm
Yeah,
not as good at source spelunking as you are.
Yeah. I mean, you're welcome to check out the links. I think I've basically been covering this for the past 6 months.
Yeah.
And so I just like watched everything that everyone says and does. So this is like everything that I know, and obviously like that doesn't reflect what they have. But yeah, sorry. So when you look at use cases for suspense, I think looking at the test is pretty interesting.
Yep.
Debouncing, intentional state preloading, streaming SSR is another one. I think a lot of people haven't seen Andrew Clark's talk at Site Day. They should definitely check that out. Like, I've
seen that one. That's a good one too.
Yeah, and that one's working with no JavaScript rendering. There's no React DOM.render on that thing. It's just pure JavaScript. And I think that's something that React is working towards, which is a compiled React. So there's no a feature of like no runtime.
Yeah.
So that would be probably the future direction, and this is all of this work is just leading up to that.
Yeah. I know that there's a lot of fear sometimes associated with like, oh man, we're getting all this new stuff, and what does that mean for me? How do I adjust? What am I required to do? What are the best practices? And it sounds like we don't really fully know all those things yet, but that looking at the tests is a good way to see how the React team views the future, which is a really great insight that you gave us today. But then also that kind of there are things further down the road that they're thinking about. Again, like you're saying, like the no runtime React. And I had the opportunity to talk with on what prepack a little bit. And that was really fun, just kind of hearing what they're thinking about doing with prepack and all of the things that they want to do to just make React like just crazy fast. And since we're all compiling our apps anyway, to just get even further down the line with prepack. And yeah, so it's really exciting to kind of hear all these visions of things and kind of see the things that may be responsible for getting us there. But
it's funny because like the team kind of like gets criticism for like lack of transparency sometimes. But then I'm like, what more do you want? Like, they can't tell you what they're doing every day. It's called React Fusion. I keep forgetting the term because everything starts with F, like React Fire, React Fusion. But I like Fusion because Fusion like fuses React with prepack.
Yes.
Right? And that's the ahead of time compilation feature, which is very similar. Like it's funny because like Angular is doing that too. I watched the latest ngconf keynote, and I don't do Angular at all, but they were like, look at this, like now it compiles to like a 3 kilobyte runtime. Because it doesn't include anything that you don't use. And I was like, that's what React's going to do.
Well, and I think it's hard because for a lot of us who are like on the ground, I mean, even me, right? Like so it's difficult for me to like get my mind around suspense in these early phases, because it's like, oh man, I've always separated my data from like my presentation, right? But the thing is, like, if I hold on to certain ideas as like having to be immutable forever in the state of or in React, I would never be able to see some of these things that are kind of like grander visions, like that zero runtime React. Just bundle up your app and it works crazy fast.
Okay, so I would say that I don't know, but okay, so I would say that React Fusion is definitely something new to React, and it's something they're going to talk about in ReactConf. But But React Suspense, to me, is very, very much the core of React, which is make imperative things declarative,
Yeah.
and make components like the heart of like how you declare and work with UIs.
Yep.
And so if you notice, like when you do components in the demo that we talked about, the placeholder is a component, right? And we're suspending and just like declaratively saying at each point, it gives us a language. Like Sebastian actually talks about React as a language,
yes.
A UI language to intentionally state our loading states, I guess. But so I mean, yeah. So I think that React Suspense is a smaller break of React than the rest of the stuff that they're hinting at.
Sure, sure. Hey, there's one more question real quick. I just want to get to it. So Sammy asks, will Suspense make page transitions easier? For example, keep current page until the next one loads and crossfade. Yeah.
Okay, so
I think the question here is actually two-part, because like the first one, yes, you'll have like more fine-grained control over like when those pages transition. The crossfade thing though is like I'm curious about, and I think that kind of gets to that root of like shared element transitions. Is that the term for it?
No. So shared element transitions is something more. I can show you.
Okay.
Sarah Drasner, shared native like something. So I did a clone of her app in React. So she did this thing, right? And this is shared. Okay. I mean, this is what I understand by shared element. And you can tell me if that's what you understand by it. Because that's a different. Okay. So here, when I look at watch these elements, they transition. They don't disappear, right?
Right. It's hard to see on the stream, but I'm taking it for granted. Yeah. I've seen this demo.
Okay.
No, I can find it and I can throw it in chat for people who are also watching this.
It's page-transitions.com.
Okay.
So these are shared element transitions, and then here what they have is enter leave semantics. So first the page that is exiting transitions out, and then the next thing that comes in transitions in, right? So it's very so you can do like. So you can't do crossfade unless you have both sort of superimposed on each other, and that's something you can definitely do now in React, but it's not as nice because you don't have you just have component will mount. You don't have component did mount. Sorry, you have component will unmount, but you don't have component did unmount.
Yeah.
So there's a missing lifecycle, which they've actually talked about. There's yeah, I mean, they're as far as I know, there are plans to add that final lifecycle, which will make it better to do leave transitions for a page that is already for React Node that is already unmounted, but you keep it around for the purposes of transitioning.
I see.
But I mean, like nothing about React Suspense changes any of your CSS.
Yeah.
Right? Yep. So if you know CSS, I think it's completely fine.
Okay, cool. But it does kind of, for the first part of that, gives you way better mechanisms to make smoother page transitions, especially in terms of keeping the old page around while you load that data.
Right.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that's good. I mean, we've been doing this for a little bit over an hour. Is there anything else you wanted to say?
No, I'm super excited. I think we're going to talk again at ReactConf. There's more awesomeness. I mean, I think this is much. I think it's going to be released next week. Yeah, it's already available in the 16.6 Canary. So it's going to be in 16.6.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be next week. So look forward to it soon.
Yeah, and actually, we're going to do a React podcast while we're out there, so that should be super fun.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, dude, this was super fun chatting with you. I really appreciate your time, and I know it'll be valuable to a lot of people. Thank you for clarifying a lot of things for me, because I obviously didn't know a lot. So I appreciate you spending all this time kind of like collecting those things. Check out Fresh Concurrent React.
React.
Is that right?
Yeah.
On your GitHub, sdub-yx.
Yep.
Follow this guy on Twitter. He's got tons of cool stuff. Swyx on Twitter, right?
Yeah. I got
Awesome.
in early.
Cool. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate you you hanging out with me.
All right. Thanks so much, Michael. See ya. Bye.